Welcome to the Triple S podcast. Today we'll talk about the recent moves made by NBA teams in this offseason and about the biggest winners and losers of the NBA draft. There's been a flurry of trades since Denver won a couple months ago, not a couple months ago, about a month ago, from multiple teams, the most active of which are the Washington Wizards. They traded Bradley Beal, one of their stars, for Chris Paul, who then flipped to Golden State for Jordan Poole. They also traded Kristaps Porzingis for a couple players, including Tyus Jones. I really like these trades by the Wizards, who now have the picks and the young talent to start a rebuild. And as much as I like Bradley Beal, it was necessary that I got rid of him. He took up a bunch of their salary and was only going to get worse with age, really. And I think that he'll be great for his son, so I think that's a win-win. And plus, getting back that young talent like Tyus Jones, like Jordan Poole, it'll help them build a core, which they may have to move for picks or for other players later on, but it'll help them establish themselves with this rebuild because they're going to have a lot of high picks as the years go on, and I think that they'll get a lot of good players in the top 10 of the drafts, and I think that this might be the start of a really good rebuild that launches the Wizards back into stardom in a couple years. They will be pretty terrible though for between now and those years where they're good, but they have the core and the future picks to make that manageable for the fan base and for the GM and the owner. So I give these a couple of trades an A minus. I think the only thing they could have done better was maybe get some better young players besides Jordan Poole. But honestly, for the value that Chris Paul has, they did a really good job. On the Suns side, they continued a trend of getting stars at the expense of their depth. Now they have Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and KD, one of the best big threes of the league, but they're not a team built for playoff success. They just don't have the depth. Besides those three, the best players are Ish Wainwright and Cameron Payne, maybe TJ Warren. They just don't have the depth that they did when they had Mikal Bridges. And they still have DeAndre Ayton, who wasn't very good last year and who needs to be traded as soon as possible. He's on a $30 million contract and just eats up their salary. And they need to trade him if they want to flesh out their team, maybe get some veteran role players, or simply just free up that cap space to sign some players in this free agency. So I give them a C. They'd be a lot better if they got rid of Aiden, but I think that has to be their biggest priority right now. Uh, the other biggest mover was the Boston Celtics. They got Kristaps Porzingis from the Wizards in a three-team trade. They gave up Marcus Smart, who's going to the Memphis Grizzlies. But getting Porzingis really helps them establish a better offensive front court because they already have Grant Williams and Robert Williams III, but those are mostly defensive-oriented players. And Porzingis averaged almost 24 points last year, which would be the third most if he was on the Celtics last year. And, to pair him with Jason Tatum and with Jaylen Brown, I think is really important. And this just gives them more security to make a deeper run in the playoffs like they did last year and the year before. But this year, I think that they can really get close to winning that chip. They did have to give up Marcus Smart, though, who, along with being one of the best defensive point guards in the league, is also a huge part of the Celtics culture. He's going to the Grizzlies, who upgraded their PG position with Smart because Ja Morant is out for 25 games to start the season. However, they did have to give up Tyus Jones, who's one of the best backup point guards in the league. And I think they gave out too many picks. They gave out this year's pick and next year's pick for Smart. So I think that while they did a really good job, they could have done a little bit better. I give them a B plus, and I give the Celtics a B minus because while it is great to get Kristaps Porzingis, giving up Marcus Smart, who's such a big part of that team, really hurts them in the long run. However, I think that all of these trades for the Suns, the Wizards, the Celtics, and the Grizzlies were all net positives. I don't think any team really lost one of these big trades. But we'll just have to see what happens. I think the most interesting team to watch will be that Phoenix Suns with that big three. Especially as KD, he only has a couple more years to get that uh, ring that he hasn't gotten if it wasn't for Steph Curry. So he really needs to prove that he can get a ring on his own with his own big three. There's a draft this past Thursday, It featured perhaps the most anticipated prospect since LeBron, Victor Wembanyama. He's obviously the first pick, making the Spurs, who picked him, won the lottery last month, instant contenders. They have the young trio of Wembanyama, Devin Vassell, and Keldon Johnson now. I think they'll make noise immediately and for years to come if they get those players to stay. This could be a really dangerous team as soon as next year and the year after that. I think that the other biggest winners were the Detroit Pistons, who got Stuart Thomas to pair with Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren. Those are four really good young players, and Cunningham has the potential to be a superstar in the next couple of years, really into that Jason Tatum, KD, Devin Booker type of range. Next to all-star talent in Ivy and Duran, and I think that Thompson will just fit right in there. A tall guard like Cunningham. They all need to improve on their shooting though, so we'll see how that goes. I think, obviously if they could have gotten Azur's brother, Amen Thompson, earlier he went to the Rockets, but I think if they had gotten him, that would have been great. But regardless, I think that they're a huge winner here because they've set themselves up for years to come. And I think that the biggest loser, while I did just praise their trade moves, were the Washington Wizards, which is Bilal Coulibaly, who I think was taken way too highly, especially considering the talent behind him, such as Grady Dick, Cam Whitmore, Jarris Walker. Even though we did hear that Cam Whitmore did have some injury concerns, that's why he fell down to 20, I still think that he's such a good player that at least some team should have taken a risk on him. We obviously don't know the extent of that injury issue, but we'll have to keep checked on that. And I think that Bilal it's a high risk pick, and really a missed opportunity to take a more solidified player to really solidify that young core that I was talking about earlier with Poole, with Tyus Jones, and I think that taking somebody like Bilal Coulibaly was just it's not a waste of a pick, but it's somebody with a really high upside, but with a really low floor. And uh, they also picked somebody like that, the Los Angeles Lakers, who took Jalen Hood with the 17th pick. I think that they're one of the biggest losers in this draft. Hood doesn't seem to have a lot of a very high upside, unlike Bilal, but he does have a low floor. I think he could be a good role player, but the Lakers seemingly wasted a pick when they could have flipped for veteran depth. They still need a lot of talent to surround LeBron and AD. LeBron's getting older. He may leave as soon as next year when Bronny James is drafted. And while they did have that second half after the All-Star break run where they were the best in the league, they did have that first half where they were really terrible, and it looked like LeBron was off. AD was playing great, but obviously they had Russell Westbrook, who they dealt at the trade deadline. But I think that they could have gotten some more depth instead of this pick, who he could turn out to be a good role player, but he isn't an instant contributor to that team. But ultimately, all of these picks depend on their coaching and their usage next season, which we'll cover as teams move into free agency in the summer camp, along with all of the other MLB, NFL, and college football news. Thank you.